Hello, this is Brian Foster on Kardec Radio, presenting the program Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us. Hello, this is Brian Foster on December 17th, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, all time zones all around the world, bringing you another Spiritist program on Kardec Radio. You can listen on Kardec Radio live. Well, not live, but some are pre-recorded, but me, you can listen live every Sunday at the same time, 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern, whatever time zone you are. I know we have listeners all the way from Australia, Europe, England. So we have listeners all over. And to get Kardec Radio, which you can get Spiritist programs, 24 hours a day, lots of great information. There's live programs, there's pre-recorded programs. You can just go on your Apple device, on your App Store, or your Android device on the Play Store, and you can look up Kardec Radio, Kardec Radio, and it's a free app. Get that app. You can listen to us all the time. I also have a blog site. You can see it on the screen. I'll show that right now on nwspiritism.com. Again, that is nwspiritism.com, which I have many articles all about Spiritism. Spiritism was first codified by Allan Kardec in the 1850s, and it is the third revelation. Jesus promised us more information and a great consoler in the New Testament. That was done by Allan Kardec from the Spirit of Truth during the 1850s. He created a series of questions for mediums for the spirit world throughout Europe. He did not use information just from one spirit, from one medium. He used multiple mediums. He asked them the same question, and he only used the information if he got the approximate same answer from multiple places. It is a revelatory book. I cannot recommend the Spirits book enough for anybody. That's how I got into it. You can go to my site, NW Spiritism. You can click on his picture on the top right, and it'll take you to the EDICEI bookstore, and you can buy his book. You can also look up Allan Kardec, Kardec, and then add PDF. You can find all those books on PDF. I have on my Facebook site, Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us. There's a link on my nwspiritism.com site. In the file section, I also have Spiritism 101, the third revelation. I have that in PDF also for you. And also on the far right, I have many of the books that I've created, which gives you information about Spiritism, tells you one like Explore Your Destiny, all about the spirit world, the processes, the organization of the spirit world. I talk about reincarnation and the case for reincarnation. I take all information from Spiritist books in English and try and compile it so people understand what is reincarnation. I talk about the 7 tenets of Spiritism, more of a personal look as far as how Spiritism meant to me, how I saw the signs and signals, how the spirits guided me to Spiritism. So a lot of information on Spiritism, and I cannot tell you enough that it is a wonderful doctrine. It's not a religion, it's a doctrine. No one's going to ask you for money. No one's going to tell you to pray the same rote. No one's going to tell you to wear something or not eat anything. It's the doctrine. And if you want to sum it up in a couple of words, it's just the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. It's almost every religion everywhere has a similar proposition. So it tells you all about the spirit world. It lets you know these things that have vexed you for many, many years. About NDEs, near-death experiences, about visions, about why good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. It answers those questions about why we're here on Earth. And as part and parcel of answering those questions about why we're here on Earth, I have written a series of books. And this is what I've done, is I've taken revelations given to the Reverend G. Vale Owen in the early 20th century, 1910s, 1920s. He had a series of communications from spirits, beginning with his mother to very high spirits, all about the spirit world. And in this, he not only completely followed the Spiritist doctrine, but he complemented it, he added to it. The Reverend G. Vale Owens in Communications to the Spirits gave us so much more information from about the higher levels of heaven and how it's organized and what our future is going to be. So, I mean, I cannot tell you, there's this wonderful Spiritist literature out there, and if I were you, I would read it. It will tell you why you're on Earth, why you go through the trials you go to, why bad things happen to you. Quick answer, it's karma, and you have to accumulate new experiences. But it tells you so many things that make you feel better about why you're on Earth. You do have a purpose. You are an immortal spirit. You will be a perfect spirit one day. It will happen, but the time it takes, the amount of effort it takes is up to you. Your next life, how good your next life is, how smooth, is up to you. Every action has a reaction. Now, let me get to where we are. I have been talking for 4 episodes about heaven as revealed by the Reverend G. Vale Owen, who was an Anglican priest. Of course, he was kicked out because he revealed all these messages which was not in concert with the Church of England. So now I want to talk about this temple on the 5th level of heaven. Now, when I talk about the levels of heaven, as I said before, these numbering system is according to the spirits who talked to the G. Vale Owen. He said that there's other numbering systems by other spirits, but they're going to use this one just to make sure that even between different groups of spirits who talk to him, that they stay consistent. So don't take the numbering system that G. Vale Owen gave us as the absolute gospel. And if someone else has a different number, it's wrong. No, it's just a frame of reference. So spirits who come to Earth to watch over and guide us aren't omnipotent and ever powerful creatures. They too requires periods of rest and relaxation. Why? Because the angels, the spirits, right? They're us, right? They are us, better trained and more mature. And like anyone, they can't work all the time. They're not expected to work. Heaven is not a place of eternal leisure. They have to rest and decompress. So after a long and arduous labor in the dense atmosphere of Earth, a replenishment of spiritual grace is warranted. And such one of the uses of the temple in the 5th level of heaven, which I had explained in the previous episode, how it was constructed. And in the communication which the Spirit Kathleen described the actual construction by means of willpower and thought, right? Because in heaven, thought is action. She also illustrated the intended use of the temple. And this is what she said. It's very interesting. So this gives you another glimpse into heaven. She says, it is now beginning to be used for the storage of energy in which those will be baptized who come from the different parts of sphere 5 and also from those spheres below. From time to time, they are immersed in its vibrations of color, laved in the streams and fountains of water which are within, are swathed in the web and woof of music. The while, their nature responding, they are strengthened in the parts where strength is lacking, are enlightened in those parts where intelligence is dimmed. But mark you, it is not a sanatorium merely, but of, shall I say, higher quality. Its use will be both for body and for personality, to fit in for this journey onward, not alone in bodily strength, but also in intellectual clarity, by which he may the more readily and the more greatly profit by the knowledge that it is his to come at, but also himself is attuned to those whose love and life are focused on that glorious temple, and who await the pilgrims coming to their own higher places. So in our places of worship, it's very interesting. It tells you all about what's needed to be done. There's an opportunity to cleanse the soul, to mediate and relax, right? In our sanitariums or health resorts, the body is given a combination of rest, healthy activities, and sustenance to enable to heal itself, to restore harmony and balance. The temple on the 5th level is all that and more. So think of it. When we cast off our physical bodies, we are a spirit. We are more energy, and the light shows, the water. It's all about tuning our energy. And the same thing happens in Spiritism with passes. And in passes, if you go to a Spiritist center, they'll have a talk, right? They'll have a talk half hour, an hour, and then they'll give you passes, and you'll sit there, and they will channel. It's a lot. Is the same concept of Reiki. In the Spiritist Center, it actually explains how it's done. Is a spirit will stand behind the person giving you passes, putting their hands. They don't touch you, but they'll just wave their hands around different parts of your body, and you'll feel the energy. I've been to many places with passes, and you feel the energy, and you feel more balanced. You feel harmonious, and it's the spirits giving you that. So the same thing happens to other spirits. They go to the temple, and they get refreshed. And when Kathleen states to fit the spirit for the journey onward, she's talking about not only healing and restoring, but modifying and adding to the body. So this is another difference. So as one ascends, one transforms in character, personality, and form. The spirit body actually changes. Not only does it lose its density, but it acquires new capabilities. And in subsequent communication to Vale Owen, the spirit Kathleen further explains the uses of the temple. And this is what she says. For they who lack leisure for quietness and peace are not able to respond to the thoughts of us who come from realms so different. And much of what calm strength we had in us when we started on our journey, not all of it is dispersed from us in the spheres as we come hitherward. And of what remains, we always seek to impart to those of earth who respond to our seeking and who need so greatly what peace we have to give. When we too become deplete of our grace and of the willpower to impart it to you, what little is left to us, then we return homeward to replenish the cistern in the free, clear air of the heaven of God, for which all strength and peace go forth. This has bearing on the matter of the temple, for that is one of its uses, to be a reservoir in which shall be accumulated such power and blessing from the higher realms for use as occasion serves to those of earth and the spheres next in order of ascent. So, what is she telling us? She's telling us the reservoir is also, temple is a reservoir of spiritual energy, like water standing still behind the dam, waiting to be utilized as needed. The temple stores the love of God, ready to rain down on spheres below, to send power to restore peace and calmness in those who require assistance. The existence of the temple illustrates the difference between the physical and the spiritual realms. Thoughts, feelings, love are all actionable. They are definite objects of weight and usage. While our minds don't seem to be more than containers to control our body and process information from the outside, they are powerful tools laying dormant until we learn how to use them. So it gives you a glimpse of heaven. It gives you an idea of these are things. In heaven, heaven is a place where people come and go, they learn, they study, they work, they come and help us on earth, they come and help errant spirits on the lower zone and the dark abyss. The lower zone is all the part from the crust of the earth up to the first level of heaven. The dark abyss is below the crust of the earth, where people who are truly criminal actually go, and they stay until they're ready to ascend. There's no absolute hell for infinity for anyone. Spiritism tells us that everybody will become a perfect spirit someday. Some people may be in a hellish type region for thousands of years if they refuse to change and let the love of God into them. And to give you some more feel for heaven, I want to tell you another story that was given to the Reverend Vale Owen, and it's now remember, he wrote this book just around, his messages are from 1910, 1920, and during that time, World War I was going. And one of the spirits told him about two soldiers who met in heaven. And what happened is that a soldier awoke confused at the boundary on the first level of heaven. And this is all going to tell you how spirit helpers help us when we all of a sudden wake up from our physical life, right? They're there to help us. Just like Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead. Now you should know what it means. It means that the spirits are helping the people who are leaving their bodies. They're helping those people rise up to heaven. So a soldier awoke confused at the boundary on the first level of heaven. Spirit helpers found him lying on the grass near one of the gates. They came to him and waited for his eyes to open, and to open from a life spent on earth, to open from a violent death in the midst of a great battle. The war was World War One, the war to end all wars, as it was thought of immediately after the conflict. On December 7th, 1917, a group of spirits relayed the story of two combat veterans meeting in heaven. The war had been raging since July 1914 and would last for almost another year. The group of spirits employed the spirit Kathleen for direct communication. So even like with Chico, it's not just one spirit talking to the medium. It's a group of spirits channeling all their messages and trying to use one spirit who's most in tune was that medium to channel the right information to that person. So this soldier, he did not die in his bed like so many others. He never had a family to leave behind. He wasn't old enough. He, like so many others, was swept up in a fervor of nationalistic conflict caused by poor judgment of those in power, a common state in a world of atonement. Now, we are on a world of atonement. Earth is a campus of learning. We are here. Now, what does atonement mean? It means we repay for past wrongs. That's what we're doing. Spiritism doesn't like to use the word sins because many people consider things sins that Spiritism doesn't. That's homosexuality. Spiritism does not consider that a sin or a wrong. After all, the Spirits book in the 1850s asked a couple questions. One is, can spirits come back as male or female? And the answer was they can come back as either. You can come back either. You have to learn both parts of the equation. And what is marriage? And they said a marriage is between two spirits. They do not say between a male and a female. So this gives you an idea probably of why a lot of the Spiritist books were burned by the Catholic Church in the late 1800s because of things like this, which, I mean, if, now would not be such a big a deal. But in 1850s, even in the 1950s, it would have been a big deal. So this shows you the loving doctrine of Spiritism. So there's some atonement where we come and we try to repair our best wrongs. And most importantly, we try and improve our character and our personality. We try to become mature, civilized spirits. We are immortal. We live forever. And therefore, our life on earth are just but short interludes. It's like sending your kid to school and they come back. They send them back the next day. Hopefully they learn a little bit and they come back. We're the same way. So then the soldier awakened. And the young man's first question after he opened his eyes and demonstrated his training and his time in the trenches. What about my kit, please? Have I lost it? And like kind nurses to a patient coming out of surgery, no harsh realities are spoken, only calm and soothing conversation to allow the patient to slowly come to their senses, to regain their balance and place themselves within a new context. The spirit helpers engaged with the young lad. One of them, who had led the others, replied, "Yes, boy, I fear you have, but we can give you other and better kit in its place." He was about to reply when he noticed the aspect of the landscape and said, "But who brought me here? I don't remember this country. It was not like this when I was hit." Then his eyes opened wider, and he asked in a whisper, "Say, sir, have I gone west?" Now, when they say I've gone west, that was a euphemism for have I died back in World War I? Have I gone west? Because you were on the fields of France or Belgium, and going west would be going back home, but even further than England would be dying. So then the Spirit answered, "That's what it is, my boy. You have gone west, but not many realize the fact so soon. We have watched you all the while. Watch you grow up and in your office and in your training camp and in your work in the army till you were hit. And we know you've tried to do what you felt to be right. Not always, but on the whole, you have taken the higher way, and now we'll show you your home." This short paragraph tells you so much about how we should live our life and how wonderful heaven is. He says, you've tried to do what you felt to be right? Not always. No one expects us to be perfect. No one expects us to be saint. No one expects us to be monks or nuns. We're just expected to try and listen to our conscience. Try not to rationalize away. When our conscience tells us something, don't say, "Oh, it's okay, I can do that." No, try to listen to your conscience. But look, it's the intent. Are you trying to be better? And they told him, we've watched you. It's the other thing, right? It's like parents tell their kids, God's watching you, right? And of course, most of the parents don't believe that they're always being watched. I never did when I was younger, until I found Spiritism, as I finally realized that, yes, everything we're doing is taken down. Now, how does that work? Well, we all emanate thoughts, do we not? And this, in Spiritist literature, they tell us each of our thoughts are tagged with our unique ID. It's just like your cell phone. It's just like your use of the internet. Anything comes from your computer or your cell phone is tagged with that unique IP address. So it knows where you are, knows what you've done, knows who you've talked to. For us, it's our thoughts. Everything is revealed. Everything is in the universal cloud. So, as a soldier, as this poor boy was, in the thick of the long, drawn-out battle of trench warfare, the young man was ready for death, right? He was going to meet it at any time. He had seen so many of his comrades perishing that he too knew that death would come in an instant. One moment you are in your physical body, and the next the body is destroyed by the latest weapon of war. Unbeknownst to him, he had been carefully monitored throughout his whole life, each deed recorded and analyzed. Every decision was weighed for his dedication to do the right thing. We are going to be weighed the same way. The correct path is always easy to follow. Our conscience illuminates the road ahead. When we wander off, our bodies experience stress. In our normal course of life, we live with a low-level dose of anxiety. All that is part of our makeup. We wish to perform well. To show ourselves and others we can be successful. But the debilitating type of stress is when our normal balance and harmony is thrown off by violating what our conscience is telling us. By moving forward with a plan, an occupation, an emotional attack on another, or any deed that we at some level recognize as unjust, our harmony is thrown off kilter. Our chakras, our force centers, as they're called in Spiritism, sense that we are acting in direct confrontation to the set of divine laws that each and every one of us carry within. That is why meditation is an effective method for dealing with stress. It allows our mind to be silent and opens a pathway for spirits with our good in mind to send us the solutions to our problem. And that solution is invariably to act honorably in whatever situation we've gotten ourselves into. That is how you relieve stress. You relieve stress by thinking rightly and acting rightly. As the Buddhists say, right? They have the 7 steps. They have all these acting rightly, but this is very important. And of course, Buddha was also one of the messengers from the spirit world. That's why there's so much commonality between religions. They're all sent from the same place. They're all giving us the same message. Think rightly, act rightly, right? Be honest, be kind, be loving. So the young soldier had, within his short lifetime, tried to stay within the boundaries his conscience had laid out for him. I had wished I had done that. I have done, unfortunately, many things that I knew violated what I should have done. And now you just move on. Don't do that again. Analyze it. Say, okay, it's a learning experience. Don't do that. So hence, upon his death, he did not wake up in a dangerous and desolate wasteland like so many did and still do today, but on a grassy slope with assistants waiting by. Then he wanted to clear up a point he had on his mind. So he was silent for a time. He said, "Can I ask a question, or is it against the rule?" He goes, "No, you ask your questions. We are here to answer them." "Well then, was it you, sir, who came to me one night in the Century and spoke to me about going west?" And the spirit answered, said, "No, it was not any of us here. That one is waiting for you a little further up the road there. If you are strong enough, we will take you to him. Try and rise and see if you can walk." He rose quickly and stood to attention from the habit he had formed. The leader smiled and said, "My dear boy, all that is past. Discipline here is quite different from what you have known hitherto. Count us as your friends and come along with us now. Commands will be given and you will obey, but not yet a while. When that comes to pass, such commands will be given by those who are higher than we, and you will obey, not from the fear of reprimand, but out of the greatness of your love." It tells us so much about heaven. People are in charge because they are full of love. They're there. It's a spiritual meritocracy. So obey because of the love one bears. So there's nothing more telling about heaven and the organization of the spirit world than this statement. It explains the atmosphere of love that is everywhere in every level of heaven. It illustrates the deserved superiority of the higher spirits from whence we take our orders. Imagine working for a company where you couldn't wait to get to work, interact with your friends, and enthusiastically anticipate your next assignment. That is heaven. The lad followed the group through the gate with grand trees lining the roadway, flowers which had sprouted out of the ground, contrasting the tall trees. As the troop marched on into the land of heaven, they came upon a grassy mound, upon which another young man sat, waiting for the arrival of his mate. Seeing his friend, he stood up and walked arm in arm with the new arrival. The young lad walked a short while, and then, suddenly, the young soldier stopped, removing the arm of the other, turned and looked at him intently, because he wasn't quite sure who he was. Then a smile suffused his face, and he took both hands in his own and said, "Why, Charlie, who would have thought of this? Then you didn't manage it at all." And so Charlie was the one who spoke to him before. Now, Jock goes, "No, Jock, I didn't, thank God." So Jock was the boy who had just died. "I went west that night. Afterwards, they let me come and stay with you. I went with you pretty well everywhere and did what I could for your comfort. Then they told me you would soon be coming over here. Well, I thought you ought to know. So I remember what you had said to me when you tried to get me out of it and back to the lines again after I got it in the neck. So his friend must have been wounded in the neck. He tried to pull him back, but he couldn't. He tried to save him, but he left him in no man's lands. Hopefully tried to get medical help, but he expired. And so I waited till you were quiet and by yourself, and then I tried all I could. I knew afterwards I managed to make you see me and partly hear what I had said to you about coming west." "Ah, yes, it's coming west, not going, isn't it?" "Yep, that's the size of it, old fellow. And now I can thank you for what you tried to do for me that day." So the two went ahead of the rest, who slowed their pace so that this might be so, and in homely language, just as one has been, made their friendship for each other known. And so the spirit group who recounted this story to the Reverend G. Vale Owen told them the important points to contemplate about this story, right? Nothing we get from the spirit world is just meant to be thrown away. Everything they tell us has some sort of meaning from this, through spiritism, through high spirits. Other mediums, right? The level of the medium attracts a certain level of the spirit that connects to them. That's why spiritist mediums will only really talk to higher level spirits, because they're there. They're not there to make money. They're not there to charge you. They're not there to tell you your fortune. They're not there to tell you the lottery ticket. They're there to tell you what you can learn and how you should improve yourself. So what they told Reverend G. Vale Owen goes, "Now we have chosen this incident in particular to show you several things. Among them, these: no kind act is ever passed by without note in these spheres. The one who does the act is always thanked here by the one whom the benefit has been done. Those who come over here still use the language and manner of earthly speech. Some of you would be greatly shocked to hear this rather forcible phrases which drop from the lips of really bright spirits when they first meet their friends on earth. I speak now especially of the soldiers who have fought in the war, as these two have done. Rank here keeps pace with true inner worthiness." So rank, right? That's where you are. "And is affected not in the least by earthly rank or by earthly education. Of those two, the one who came over first had been a laborer before enlistment and of poor parentage. The other had come from a family not poor in worldly affairs and had for some years been in office of business in preparation for a responsible position in his uncle's house. Their respective status was not much of account when the one who had led the other wounded away from the trenches. Here it was of no account whatsoever. So do friends meet here and begin the onward way. For they who are faithful in their duties on earth are made welcome when they come hither into these fields of beauty and rest, where no sound of war is heard, nor wounds nor pain can penetrate. For this is the realm of peace, where the weary find sanctuary from all of earth's troubles, and many joys of life abound." So hence, a laborer, a white-collar worker, a captain of industry, a senator, a Nobel Prize winner, all take the same baggage with them over to the other side. Their deeds, their accumulated knowledge, their character, transformed for the better or worse. That is all. Nothing else factors into the equation of where in heaven or below they shall land after their bodies melt back into primal matter. With this knowledge, never be jealous of the rich or famous, for their trials are all the harder due to the many temptations they encounter. When you're rich and famous, you make enemies, and inconsequential people they unknowingly walk over. For on the whole, they shall not be met by friends, but by people with petty jealousies and a litany of wrongs to recite. Be thankful you are not one of those. Look instead to the quiet worker who goes on about her or his task every day, doing well whenever is possible and avoiding doing harm. The person who doesn't partake in malicious gossip and won't be drawn into trifling schemes to teach a lesson to a transgressor. That is the person who, when waking up after they have left their body for the last time, will have a team of spirits waiting to escort them through the gates of heaven. I'll get a drink of water here. So we talked a lot about heaven. We talked about how spirits help those newly departed. We talked about a little bit of what gets you into heaven, right? It's following your conscience, trying to do more good than harm, trying to spread love, following your commitments. And in heaven, the people who are there to take you in are wonderful, right? They are there to help you. Everything done to us. The earth is like an elementary school. The earth is like a school where the teachers watch the kids, like kindergartners, right? Kindergartners have no idea of the outside world. They play, and then the teacher kind of gently says, no, don't eat that glue, right? Things like that. And that's us. We're immature. We got to learn how to use our minds and think calm and use our minds for good. So let's talk about another interlude about what was there. So I want to talk about on the levels of heaven. So what the spirits who talking to the Reverend G. Vale Owen told the Reverend G. Vale Owen is they said, we're going to use a numbering system 1 to 10, but in these levels of 1 to 10, they take, I don't know how many thousands, hundreds of thousands of years to go through. But all the time you study, you work, you go from one level to the next, right? And you're always learning. And you're doing tasks. You're doing missions on Earth. You're doing missions along the spirit. Sometimes you're sent to other planets to do missions. You're sent to learn. But after level 10, there's level 11. And when they say that is where creation really begins. So the spirit Arnell, one of the spirits who talked to Reverend G. Vale Owen, tells us that in heavenly spheres 10 and below are one of service and learning and protecting us on earth, while graduation to sphere 11 is the beginning of a completely different set of duties, that of actual creation and discovery of the mysteries of the universe. And Arnell talked directly to the Reverend G. Vale Owen in the book Life Beyond the Veil. And of course, all these live streaming, when I'm talking about Life Beyond the Veil and everything I talk about Spiritism, I have a YouTube channel too. If you go to my blog site, nwspiritism.com, you'll also see a link to the YouTube channel, which I try to save all of my live streaming on, and actually previous ones where I had talks on different subjects. So he started his message to the Reverend G. Vale Owen with a glimpse of Sphere 11. In all the literature that I've read to date, this is the only passage I have found that speaks of what lays beyond Sphere 10. And this is what he says. Hitherto, the duties performed by those spirits in their advance have been, on the whole, of protective and strengthening quality. Guardian angels, you would call them, mayhap. This help truly develops and becomes of more spiritual tone as they rise higher. But essentially, it is of the same order. It is of different aspect in its application to those who are watched and aided, both in the earth sphere and those of all the spheres intervening up to the 10th. But those who enter sphere 11 now take on another series of duty. So they're not here just to help us and watch us and guide us, right? Their service now develops into that which is creative. They begin to learn the great mysteries of the universe of life, not now as to its operative power as more outwardly manifest, but as to its more inward potency as it is found nearer to those holy ones who dwell about the Father's home. So they add the greater of those lesser qualities already assimilated into their personalities and becoming attuned by degrees to the sphere ahead, prepare for their advance into the realm where creation opens out to them in all its grand panoply of might and majestic beauty. So what is he saying? What is plainly said is that from the first levels of heavens up to the 10th, the focus is on guiding lesser spirits to the light. That's us, right? We on earth are lesser spirits. We're immature. We are here to become mature. The light of love, charity, fraternity, and honest dealings with all. The entire organization of these spheres is to mainly prepare students for an actual career. I have bad news. We're like students. It's like hiring a teenager. Are they really worth any money? Some are, some few are. Most aren't worth anything. I know when I had my first job as a busboy, I don't think I was worth even the $1.65 or one. I can't remember what I got an hour that I was paid. But I learned so right. So Earth in the first 10 spheres of heaven is similar to a comprehensive campus, whereas the university students are given the task to assist the lower students in their progress through their courses. The administrators exist in another building. Their duties mainly to watch over the university students, to make sure they are completing their teaching duties successfully, and to audit and track progress of all students. The revelation that Arnell gives us is that what is ahead when one finally graduates? Here on earth, we think of dying and waking up in the spirit world as our final destination. It is not. Our final destination isn't something known as heaven, as a one place that we exist forever, for all eternity. It is level upon level, mystery upon mystery. Even the spirits on these lower levels of heaven say, we don't understand what's above. We're not sure. In fact, they even say, we're not even sure we understand God about as much as you understand God. Maybe a little bit more, but they don't even have a full understanding of who is God. So here on earth, we think of dying and waking up in the spirit world. Again, as I said, that's it, right? No, it's not. It is just but one small transition, like the bell ringing, getting up from your desk, out of school, walking the corridors, and then sitting down to begin another lesson. And only when all the required curriculum is completed does one actually exit the campus. The campus is extraordinarily vast and will take thousands of lives, if not more, to walk out into another world, a world where we begin to learn the inner workings of the spirit universe. Whereas before we were taught to use the tools allotted to us to discipline our minds, to increase our faith, all in order to more efficiently employ the attributes that we have accumulated and the features of the heavenly environment. Starting in sphere 11, which is above sphere 10, we journey behind the scenes to discover how the machinery of the spirit realm is actually manufactured. You are in the creative process. It is as if we have taken programming classes for years, ever increasing our knowledge of software and how to manipulate to create the applications we desire. But now we begin to launch into how the hardware which hosts the software platform is fashioned. We begin to learn the inner workings of the operating system upon which the software resides. I believe this is what Arnell meant when he said inward potency. What is the potential of the spirit universe? What does it make up really mean to how far we can bend the current shape of reality? How plastic, how elastic is reality? We've been told before by spirits. Earth is objective. Earth is what it is, right? Your mind, most people's minds, that isn't going to change this wall or the table. In the spirit realm, you become subjective. Your mind starts creating the reality that you want to create the reality. Now, that reality, unlike other people say that, you create your own heaven, it's completely created a reality. Well, actually, it's partly true. What happens is that you are then influenced by so many thoughts from other spirits that you start, this is where the law of affinity comes in, you start to create a heaven in common with other people's concepts. And that's why you go from level to level, because you are more attuned within these other spirits as far as your spirituality and your love. So, and as this steep transition is not the end, for there's always the next enormous discovery. And during a mediums meeting in February 2017, I was told there's a higher purpose, one that you are incapable of imagining, which you shall be unaware of for eons as you ascend, but it is there, always in the background, spurring you on like a river flowing. The current is strong and immense. Sometimes you don't realize you are in it. It flows so smoothly and naturally, but always toward a goal. For each one of us, for all of us, point to a spectacular ending, which is not an ending, but another beginning, a whole new journey, more fantastic than the last one. And other spirits have told us the same thing. Look, there's always going to be something new. It's like you're in this river going through the plain, then you go out into the ocean, then you become bigger, and then you're never absorbed. Some people say heaven now you're absorbed into the intellectuality, right? Into this one comment. Well, there's partially true of that, but you always remain your distinct personality. You add to the whole for what we have been told. So hence, besides a series of small upward steps toward an identifiable goal, we're also traveling along a path that actually follows a submerged highway, which is guiding us to a goal that we don't realize is in our future. Heaven is for eternity in our journey for all time. We'll never be dull as long as we continue striving and thirsting for new knowledge. Now, this should give you an idea that of what kind of person how do you get in heaven then, right? I've told you about being nice and everything, but also what's important and what they celebrate is intellectual curiosity. They want you to want to learn the next thing. They want you to be curious. They don't want you to. Spiritism says, your faith, right? Your faith in God, your faith in the spirit realm shouldn't be because you read it in a book, in the Bible, or because a reverend or a priest tells you so, or because I tell you so. You should explore this for yourself. Explore that for yourself, and look at the circumstances. Look at what's happened to your life. Look at what you've talked to other people, and decide for yourself how you want to be. So here's another example of a high level of heaven. What happens in heaven, not high level of heaven. The Spirit Arnell recounts a story. He was standing on an elevated path, watching a man climb up. He was experiencing great difficulty. The trek had exhausted him. Arnell was invisible to the other beings residing in the second sphere of heaven. So he was in the second sphere of heaven. And Arnell, as he tracked the man climbing, he saw a woman sitting higher, looking up at the expanse, deep in thought. And then from a path beyond the woman, he saw another woman who shined brightly, a spirit from a high level. People know that these people from higher levels because they shine brighter, as in NDEs, when they see these, what they think are angels, they see this brightness. It's all because they're from a higher level, and the brightness is the reflection of love within them. So Arnell remained invisible. Oh, and then the high spirit had a child in hand, walking towards the woman, looking out at the expanse. Arnell remained invisible, content to observe and learn. He was sent here for a purpose. He knew he had something to do with helping the man. He wasn't sure. This is how you're given tasks. You're given these mental telegrams. Say, okay, go there, and we'll kind of guide you along as you're there. You'll figure it out, right? There's a lot of self-discipline there. So Arnell told the story on November 3rd, 1920 to Reverend Vale Owen. And Arnell says, well, I stood there and I read him, and he had. And so when a spirit looks at another spirit, they can read what their thoughts are. And he says, well, I read him, and he passed from earth life somewhere about the middle age, and had gone to one of the hells, and he'd worked his way painfully onward until he reached this dim place. The magnet withdrew him was remorse for wrong done, and love for one who had passed on a little before him. This one, made frenzied by months' anguish, had thrown herself into the waters, and her life went out of her. She went then to Sphere 1, but was specifically guarded, for she had suffered much at his hands, and soon was able to poise her mind for advancement toward the light. So what we found out is the man had terribly treated his wife. He knew he was remorseful for terribly treating his wife. and he was climbing to beg for forgiveness. His wife had committed suicide to escape her tormentor. Now she was in heaven, looking out at the expanse, right? Looking out at the view, pondering her plight. Now, unlike other suicides, it seems the woman was protected and not penalized for departing early from her assigned trials on earth. The spirit world does not like this. Usually when a person is a suicide, that we are taught that they have to stay in the lower zone until their natural time of death would have occurred. So, and it was also even mentioned again in one of Andre Luis's books. I recommend it to everybody on Andre Luis, in a series of books starting with No Solar. It's also a movie, and you can get that with Francisco C. Xavier. You can buy that on Amazon, or click all his books in English are on the EDICEI bookstore, which is that picture of Allan Kardec on my site on the top right hand side. And when Andre Luis, he was a doctor in Rio, and he died. And when he died, he said this. He goes, actually, I felt like a prisoner trapped behind the dark bars of horror. Now, he was actually an unconscious suicide. He drank, and I believe he had syphilis. He had unprotected sex. And therefore, when you do all that, that's called unconscious suicide. It's like a drug addict who kills him or herself with heroin. That's the spirit world considers that, well, you offed yourself. You should have lived longer. What he had seen, he begged for mercy, clamored against the painful despondency. He had a horrible time for years until it was his time to go. He was rescued and taken to the celestial city of No Solar. But when he was in there, people kept saying, suicide, suicide. Of course, they could read his mind. They could read the circumstances in which he died. And when he went to No Solar, he said, why are they calling me suicide? Then he discovered he was an unconscious suicide. In another book, Memoirs of a Suicide by the spirit Camilo Candido Botello, published in 1955, psychographed by the great medium Yvonne Piera. Again, Memoirs of a Suicide, that is a marvelous book also. You will not regret reading that book. So again, he wrote of the landscape. It was horrible. But this lady who had killed herself was protected by that, probably because her husband gave her so much torment, and it was a good reason for that, and that she was forgiven for that suicide. So it's sad that she did that, but they protected her. So Arnell continues. He goes, so I watched him as he stood to rest. He shaded his eyes, and so the man climbed up the rocks, and he gazed steadfastly aloft. I saw he was looking at the same woman. He sat upon the top of the bank, and looking upward, he saw her side face. But she did not see him, because viewed from her own station, his less progressed form would have been very dim to her sight. Among the rocks, whereabouts he moved, to her he was quite invisible. I saw a look of strange eagerness come into his face, a look of love and of sorrow and pity. Yes, there was some evidence of increasing goodness in him now. So he strove upward toward her, and I could see a plea for forgiveness upon his lips. So as the man was watching his wife, whom he had so horribly treated, the woman who was the higher angel was walking down the path. The child let go of the child's hand, and the little boy ran towards the wife, the man's wife, and the boy appeared to be between 10 and 11 years old. The man stopped, and he saw the boy running as fast as he could to his wife. When the boy reached her, he immediately embraced the woman and kissed the woman on the cheek. So Arnell tells us what happened next. And the woman was looking out at the scenery. She looked startled at this and then much doubted to its meaning. And she pressed back her shoulders and looked upon his face and cried out afraid. But then, on impulse of great love, she thrust aside her fear, taking him close within her bosom, and fell to tears. At last he said, nay, my mother, do not cry so. All has been told to me, my mother, and I know it was not your hand which thrust me hence off earth into these realms of spirit. It is very wicked that he should do that. And this, dear mother, is but one of the very many great sins. But you and I and my angel will help him, mother, and in some long time perhaps he will come over here good and beautiful, dear, as others have done before. So, this child The husband must have killed the child. That's why she had committed suicide. And that's also why the spirit world was so kind to the mother. He probably did not want the child, or he killed it in a time of meanness. Now, the child was then raised in the spirit world. They raised the child. So that's why then also the mother didn't recognize. She probably was killed as a baby. And it was it's so sad. But the boy already, slayed at an early age, right, was led by good spirits to be raised in the spirit world where many children are taken. And they are blessed with the second chance to reform their character by being brought up amongst love and kindness. They are raised in the kingdom of tranquility, wonderment, and with a sense of higher purpose. Upon graduation, they wait a chance to incarnate again to the school of earth. The actions of this man seeing and understanding the interplay between the boy and his mother is then described by Arnell. When the boy stood upon the bank top, the man over there looked below him, saw him for the first time. He looked at him very curiously. He seemed to be aware of some affinity with the boy which he could not define. But when he saw the lad kiss his mother and crown her with the flowers, his perplexity was resolved suddenly, and with no further effort of his own, a look of horror and frenzied fear came upon him. His face turned livid, and he, collapsing, fell headlong down the hill. He struck one boulder after another, and at length lay inert and still at the bottom of the pass where the mist was gathered. And where he lay, it became more dense than elsewhere, attracted toward him by the conditions about his spirit. I knew that he would be a hard man to deal with, for to his fear I saw a sudden hatred added. So there are several points in what Arnell said that, to consider. First, the physical marks from the man fall into the crevice are his own mind. He can't die from any injuries in the spirit world. He only thinks he's in pain and his body is damaged. Therefore, he lays as if he was severely injured. Secondly, even in the second sphere, a spirit not schooled in the power of their mind can change their surrounding by their thoughts. Arnell pointed out how the area around the man became denser, more matter than energy, to conform to the level of his mind. So even a soul who made it to one of the initial levels of heaven has trouble with controlling primitive urges and emotions. So one sees the inability to forgive, to forget, to allow a second chance everywhere, and both in the physical and the spirit worlds. And I was at a mediums meeting in Rio de Janeiro in 2014 when I witnessed an encounter pertaining to the inability to let go of anger. A woman spirit began talking through a female trance medium, and immediately she began complaining about her life in general. How could somebody study, go to school, be educated, wishing to be a good wife, and yet spend a long time locked in her own house by her husband? Now, she's saying this through a female medium at the table. And if that's not enough, her husband then marked her face with a red-hot iron. He burned all of my face. And then she cried and said she was sad. And she seemed to believe her face was still disfigured. Of course, you are what you think you are, right? You look what you think you look like. And even she thought she still, even though she left her physical body. And next, so what's really interesting in this mediums meeting, so next, on the other side of the table, a medium, a man medium, her husband started speaking through him. Another trance medium said, and the husband said, I feel terrible, I did this. But during those times, the husband totally owned the wife. And I sat there and I thought, oh, this must have happened many years ago, right? When women had no rights, right? They were, like he said, owned by their husbands. And the counselor medium talked to the man, goes, yes, I understand your regret. And the husband responded, yes, you are right. All I want is your forgiveness. I am very regretful. So I witnessed a very tragic situation. And this is what Spiritist centers do. They will have mediums meeting where they'll help discarnate errant spirits who need help in the lower zone or below in order to resolve their anger, resolve their emotions, resolve their feelings of hatred toward each other, who knows. And they will help these people, and they help them because they need this human interaction because they're not totally divorced from the material earth life. That's why they use human mediums to help them. And what's so sad about this woman is their absolute anger. It's understandable, right? but it reached the point that her negative thoughts are detrimental to her own health. And who knows how many decades both have been merely existing in this twilight zone. This is the same thing happened to this poor guy. He had been so angry, who knows about what. And then when he saw his wife being hugged by this, boy who's probably at the age he would have been if the man had not had killed him, instead of him being swamped over by remorse and regret, he just got angry because he could not control his emotions. And so as he fell down the cliff, right, the boy took the mother by the hand to meet the older woman who had been taking care of him in the spirit world. And the mother approached her. She became desperate so the mother could see her. And seeing the bright angel who had helped her son, the mother fell to her knees, begin to cry. She couldn't stop herself. Such was her relief and regret for all that has passed. And Arnell noticed the boy, the mother, and the man all had the same hair color. He could tell that they were a family. And he knew the benevolent angel would take care of the boy and his mother. So he turned away and went in search of the man who had fallen down the hill. And Arnell tells us what he did and his intended plan for the man. He goes, I descended into the valley where the man still lay in a stupor. I did not rouse him, but I carried him to a place of refreshment where, when he had rested, he would be given his next task to do. The task would be to eliminate all taint of self and of hatred from his heart. Well, look, please do that here, right? Do that here while we're in physical life. It'll save you many lives ahead to become a perfect spirit. He goes, that will take him a long, long time, because for when a man hates, where he should do penance and plead for pity, well, that is a very sorry plight to come to and hard to rectify. He will do it. He'll have to do it before he moves ahead once more, but it will take him long, long years ahead. So how many daily dramas occur on earth and in surrounding areas? This is why the Reverend G. Vale Owen, giving us these glimpses of heaven and how spirits work with the lower spirits, is so educational for us. We see all of these mistakes that other people make. We also see how the spirit world is trying to help us. I discussed that on my book, The 7 Tenets of Spiritism, how they impact your daily life. Is there's signs and signals all around us telling us all the time that what the spirits want us to do. When you're trying something and it just doesn't work, right? You should look at your conscience and say, okay, am I trying to do something that's against my conscience? Because somehow it's not working. Now it's hard. I don't want anybody to get confused. You don't want to be, too laid back and passive. You still have to be aggressive and have to strive for things. But it's just sometimes when it's just one thing after another stops you from doing something, that's a sign saying, no, that's not really the path you want to take. Listen to that. If you keep trying beyond that, then that's your own free will choice, and you're probably making the wrong choice. Sometimes when you try something and things just go smoothly, just one thing after another, shows you're on the right track all the time. So I want to leave you there and just again say it's been wonderful to have everybody as part of our meeting today on our live Facebook. We will again remember we are on the air every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, all time zones in between. We talk about Spiritism. We are on Kardec Radio. They'll replay all sorts of much better speakers than I on Kardec Radio. They'll give you information about mediumship. They'll give you information about spirits. They'll tell you everything you can about heaven and earth and the spirit world, why we're here, where we're going. It's all a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I want to wish everyone, if I cannot talk to you before then, wish you a wonderful Merry Christmas. I think it's important that everything you can, and let the love come into your heart, and just know that God is there, the spirit world is there, listening to you, helping you. Take your time out, meditate, pray, meditate the same time, once a week or the same time every night. It may take a while, but then the spirit world will start showing you what is there waiting for you. So again, I will end my broadcast and I will say blessings for everybody, and I'll put on our ending clip in just 1 second. Here we go. Oh.
I would like to thank everyone for listening to our program on Kardec Radio, and to point you in the direction to find more information about the spirit world around us. You can visit my blog at www.nwspiritism.com. Again, that is www.nw as in Northwest Spiritism.com. And if you are ever in the Northwest, I certainly would welcome to have you come to our meeting on Bainbridge Island near Seattle in the state of Washington. Many blessings to all of you, and please continue to explore Spiritism and the spirit world around us.